Elena's hand flew to Mrs. Victoria's mouth the very second the bedroom door began to open. "Don't talk," she whispered, breath tight, eyes wide. On the other side of the door, a man's voice drifted through the crack. Calm, cold. It was Richard Porter, Mrs. Victoria's husband, talking on the phone as if he were ordering new shoes. "She's 48, no child. Her parents are gone. Everything will be mine. We finish it quietly tonight." Elena's heart slammed so hard she could hear it. Mrs. Victoria's fingers clutched Elena's wrist. The two women stood frozen in the soft glow of the hallway light. One in a blue lace wrapper with her reading glasses hanging on a chain. The other in a simple maid's dress, holding a fresh stack of towels that suddenly felt as heavy as stone. The doorknob turned. Richard took a step. Elena didn't breathe. Then, just as the door began to open, Richard stopped. He laughed into his phone, low and bitter, and the door eased shut again. "Don't worry," he said to whoever was on the line, voice fading as his footsteps moved away. "I'll make it look like an illness. After all, she's stressed. The company runs her day and night." The call cut off. Silence swelled like a drum. Mrs. Victoria looked at Elena, shock washing across her face like cold rain. Elena swallowed. "Ma," she whispered, hand shaking, but voice steady. "Please listen to me first." And that was how the worst night began. Hours before that moment, morning had risen soft and golden over Lagos. Palm fronds shifted in the light breeze. The white mansion in Ikoyi woke up like a quiet ship, gates sliding, sprinklers ticking, the kitchen humming with the smell of sweet tea and fresh bread. Elena had been awake since 5. She always was. She moved like a gentle wind. Mop, rinse, fold. Checked the flowers by the piano, wiped the glass rail by the staircase. She made sure the living room sparkled, the marble floors shining like still water, the blue curtains falling neat and smooth. She counted glasses before a meeting. She checked batteries in the remote. She noticed a scuff on the grand hallway wall and covered it with a framed family photo so Madame wouldn't see stress, where there should be only peace. Elena did these things because she knew what it felt like when a home had no peace. Her parents had died years ago. First her father, then her mother, like two candles blowing out in the same wind. Since then, life had been hard. One job here, one job there, sometimes a bed, sometimes a bench. She had learned to be quiet, quick, and careful. She had learned to make spaces feel safe, even when money was small. When she got work in Mrs. Victoria's house 3 months ago, she told herself, "Give this house your best. Make it run like a song." Mrs. Victoria noticed she was the billionaire CEO of the biggest fabrics company in Nigeria. Her designs hung in shop windows from Yaba to Victoria Island. She was firm but fair. She said, "Thank you." When Elena did small things well, she wore blue lace often and kept her glasses hanging low when she read. Sometimes when work ended late, she would call Elena into the study and make her tea too. They would sit at the big table and talk about nothing heavy, just books and how streets sound after rain. "Your hands are careful," Madame said once, watching Elena arrange the fresh roses. "Careful hands save a home from breaking." Elena had smiled. "Careful eyes too, Ma." There was only one shadow in the house, Richard Porter. He was tall, handsome, and 55, with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. He didn't work. He didn't have to. He flew on Madame's private jet and drove her cars. He ate with the board sometimes and liked to wave at cameras. But in the quiet corners, his laugh felt sharp. He would toss his shoes in the living room and leave them there for others to step over. He would say, "What's the use of all this money if we can't live free?" Then he would wink and tell Elena to bring another drink. Elena didn't judge. It wasn't her place, but she watched. She noticed he never asked Madame about her day. She noticed he rolled his eyes when Madame took calls at night. She noticed the sad way Madame's gaze sometimes rested on a small wooden cradle that sat in a glass cabinet in the hallway, a cradle that had never held a child. That afternoon, a storm gathered over the city. The sky went heavy and gray. The first thunder sounded like a far drum. Elena finished cleaning the living room and headed toward Madame's bedroom to change the sheets and wipe down the side tables. As she reached the doorway, she heard it. Richard's voice. Not playful, not lazy, hard. "I told you we're done waiting," he hissed. "I can't spend the rest of my life like this. She can't give me a child. The whole wealth falls to me when she's gone. Her parents are dead. She's their only child. We'll say it was stress. We'll say the doctor warned her to rest. We'll do it tonight. We can find a spur." Elena froze. The towel slid a little in her hands. Her mind raced, but her body went still like a cat before it runs. Every lesson she had learned about careful hands and careful eyes stood up inside her. She didn't gasp. She didn't drop anything. She didn't whisper, "Oh, God," like her chest wanted to. Footsteps clicked behind her. A gentle perfume drifted in. Mrs. Victoria. She came carrying her reading glasses and a folder, walking toward the door as if nothing in the world could be wrong. She reached for her phone, maybe to call her husband to help carry a box or open a window. Elena moved faster than her fear. She stepped in front of Madame, put down the towels, and pressed her hand softly over Madame's mouth. "Don't talk," she said, voice the smallest whisper. "Ma, please listen." For a heartbeat, Madame just stared, shocked that her maid would dare. But something in Elena's eyes, steady, bright, pleading, made her trust. Madame didn't call out. She didn't push Elena away. She stayed very still through the door. Richard kept talking lower now, as if he had moved deeper into the room. "Yes, I have the contact," he said. "One pill and rest. It looks natural. Make sure it's clean. I don't want news. I want freedom. I want a new life, a younger wife, a family. This one has given me nothing." Madame's face changed. First confusion, then understanding, then a pain so deep it made her shoulders drop. She had fed this man. She had opened the doors of her life to him. He had flown on her jet and smiled in her photos. She had chosen him even when the world asked about children. And now Elena felt Madame tremble and gently took her hand. "Ma," she mouthed, forming the words slowly with her lips. No sound. "Call the police." Madame's eyes filled with tears, but she nodded. She pulled back like a dancer, taking one quiet step. Together, they moved away from the door down the hallway into the small study. Elena shut the study door without a click. Madame's fingers shook as she dialed. "Emergency," she whispered when the voice answered. "Please come. My husband is planning to harm me." The operator asked questions. Madame answered with short words, looking at Elena as if the maid were the ground under her feet. The operator promised help. "Units are on the way." "Thank you," Madame breathed. The house seemed to hear everything. The air felt like glass. The chandelier in the living room gave a tiny sound as if one crystal touched another. Outside, the storm cracked open. Rain began to fall. Then the footsteps came back. Richard left the bedroom and walked into the hallway. Phone call finished. His shoes tapped the marble. He hummed a little tune. He was heading toward the study now. Closer, closer. The handle turned. Elena glanced at the window. She could hear it far away at first, then louder, sirens weaving through the wet streets of Ikoyi like silver snakes. Richard smiled as he pushed the door and stepped into the study, eyes sweeping the room, landing on the two women, his wife, pale and strong, and the maid standing in front of her like a small tree that refuses to bend. "What's this?" he asked, voice silky. "A meeting I wasn't invited to?" Elena lifted her chin. Madame held her phone tight. The sirens grew louder. The gate outside groaned. Boots hit wet stone. Richard's smile flickered. Elena took one breath and said with the calm of someone who had scrubbed floors and survived storms, "Ma, stand behind me." The front doors of the mansion burst open and the study door slammed against the wall as heavy steps rushed in. The storm outside grew violent, lightning cracking across the Lego sky. The heavy boots of policemen echoed against the marble floors of the mansion. Elena's heart raced, but she kept her stance firm in front of Mrs. Victoria like a wall no one could move. Richard froze, his confident smirk collapsing when he saw the armed officers pushing into the study. His eyes darted between his wife and the maid, trying to make sense of the scene. "What is this?" he barked, voice trembling now. Victoria, tell them to leave. I haven't done anything. But Mrs. Victoria stood still, her reading glasses low on her nose, tears shining, but her voice steady. You plan to kill me, Richard? She said, her words cutting like glass. I heard it all. Every single word. Richard laughed nervously, his voice cracking. It was a joke. You know me. I was only trying to sound strong on the phone. That's all. The police officer in charge, a tall man with a stern face, raised his hand. Sir, you are under arrest for conspiracy to commit murder, he declared. No, Richard shouted, stepping back. It's a lie. She's my wife. She knows I love her. This is all a misunderstanding. But as he struggled, two officers moved forward, gripping his arms and snapping cold handcuffs around his wrists. Richard turned his gaze sharply towards Elena, his eyes burning with fury. You, he hissed, voice low and venomous. This is your doing. Elena's chest tightened, but she didn't flinch. She looked him straight in the eye, calm but unafraid. No, sir. This is your doing. The police led him out, his voice echoing down the hallway. I'm innocent. I'm being set up. Victoria, please, you know me. Silence fell once the doors closed behind him. Only the storm outside kept rumbling as if the sky itself had witnessed the betrayal. Mrs. Victoria sank slowly into the chair, her hands trembling as she removed her glasses. For a moment she looked 10 years older, her strength stripped bare. Elena hurried to her side, kneeling down. Ma, are you all right? She whispered. Victoria reached out, gripping Elena's hand tightly. Her tears fell, but her voice was steady. If you hadn't stopped me, if you hadn't told me to listen. She shook her head, unable to finish. You saved my life. Elena lowered her eyes, her throat tight. I only did what was right, Ma. Victoria cupped Elena's face with her trembling hand. No, you did more than that. You gave me the truth. Outside, the flashing red and blue lights faded as the police cars pulled away. The house felt different, emptier yet safer. But in that silence, a new chapter was beginning. Because tomorrow the world would know what happened inside the Porter mansion. And Elena's life, once hidden in the shadow of service, was about to change forever. Morning broke with a weight heavier than the storm the night before. News had already spread. Billionaire CEO's husband arrested in shocking murder plot. Cameras flashed outside the court gates, reporters shouting questions, their umbrellas bobbing in the Lagos rain. Inside, the air was thick with whispers. Elena sat beside Mrs. Victoria on the polished wooden bench. But this time, she wasn't in her plain maid's uniform. Victoria had dressed her in a golden gown, elegant and glowing against her dark skin. Her hair, usually tied back, was styled neatly. She looked nothing like the girl who once scrubbed floors before dawn. Mrs. Victoria, regal in her white lace gown and signature glasses, rested a calm hand on Elena's arm. Remember, she said softly, you are part of this family now. Hold your head high. The courtroom door opened. All eyes turned. Richard Porter shuffled in, hands cuffed, a police officer at each side. His once proud shoulders sagged, his suit wrinkled from the night in custody. He looked around desperately, as if searching for a way to rewrite what had already been written. Court, rise, the clerk called. The judge entered, stern and composed, and the proceedings began. The prosecution wasted no time. Your Honor, the lawyer said, his voice sharp, we present evidence that the defendant, Mr. Richard Porter, conspired to take the life of his wife, Mrs. Victoria Porter, in order to inherit her vast estate. We will prove this through testimony, and most importantly, through his own words. Richard's eyes widened. What words? He muttered. Then the courtroom fell silent as a recording was played. From the speakers came his voice, smooth, confident, and deadly clear. She can't give me a child. Her wealth is mine when she's gone. We'll make it look natural. I want freedom. I want a new wife. This one has given me nothing. Gasps filled the courtroom. Some people shook their heads in disbelief. Others stared at Victoria with pity. Richard shot up, his voice desperate. It was a prank, a foolish joke. I never meant any of it. But the judge's expression didn't soften. You admit this is your voice? Yes, but no further explanation needed. The judge cut him off. The prosecutor continued, Your Honor, we ask for the full weight of the law. A man who plots to betray his wife, a woman who gave him everything, deserves no mercy. Richard sank into his chair, face pale. His eyes flicked once more to Elena, blazing with a mixture of anger and regret. She met his gaze calmly, her hands folded in her lap. The gavel struck. The judge's words rang out. Richard Porter, this court finds you guilty of conspiracy to commit murder. You are hereby sentenced to 10 years in prison. The courtroom erupted, reporters scribbling, onlookers whispering. Victoria closed her eyes, tears slipping down her cheeks. She turned to Elena, grasped her hand, and whispered, Thank you for saving me. But even as Richard was dragged away, shouting that he was innocent, Elena knew this was not the end. This was only the beginning of a new life, one where her place in Victoria's world was about to be forever rewritten. The days after the trial felt like stepping into a new world for Elena. Reporters swarmed outside the mansion, eager to catch a glimpse of the billionaire CEO who had survived her husband's betrayal. But when the gates opened, it wasn't just Mrs. Victoria. They saw it was Elena standing beside her in gold. No longer hidden in the shadows of service, Victoria had made a decision that shocked everyone. From this day, she announced at a press gathering, her voice steady and clear, Elena is not just my maid, she is my daughter. The words sent ripples through the crowd. Cameras flashed wildly. Elena, overwhelmed, bowed her head. Her chest swelled with emotions she couldn't put into words. She had gone from scrubbing floors to being recognized as family by one of the most powerful women in the country. But Victoria didn't stop there. She registered Elena for the university entrance examinations. When Elena passed with top marks, Victoria enrolled her in one of the best universities in Lagos to study accountancy. The first day of class was terrifying for Elena. She walked across the campus in a crisp white blouse and navy skirt, clutching her books close to her chest. Students whispered as she passed. Some had seen her face in the news. Others only knew her as the girl Mrs. Victoria adopted. But Elena kept her head high, remembering Victoria's words, Hold your head high. You belong here. University life wasn't easy. Elena studied late into the night, poring over textbooks until her eyes blurred. She faced jealous classmates who muttered that she had bought her way in, not knowing the struggles that shaped her. But she didn't let bitterness touch her heart. She worked harder, proving herself every step of the way. 4 years later, Elena graduated as the best student in her department. The auditorium erupted with applause as she walked across the stage in her cap and gown. Victoria sat in the front row, tears in her eyes, clapping proudly. When Elena joined Victoria's company as the account officer, it felt like destiny. She no longer carried trays or wiped glass tables. She carried files, signed documents, and gave presentations that left board members nodding in respect. Her quiet strength, the same strength that once saved her boss, now guided the company's finances. It was during this time that Elena met Marcus. He was a young executive from another firm, tall and kind-hearted, with eyes that seemed to notice her in a way no one else had. Their first conversation was about work, but soon it grew into late-night calls, shared laughter, and stolen glances in crowded rooms. Within months, Marcus proposed, and their wedding was nothing short of extravagant. Victoria spared no expense, giving Elena the kind of celebration she had once only dreamed of. As Elena walked down the aisle in her flowing white gown, she saw Victoria smiling through tears, her joy shining brighter than any diamond in the hall. But even as Elena began her new life as a wife, Victoria carried one decision heavy on her heart: the choice to face Richard once again. 2 years had passed since Elena's wedding. Her life with Marcus was filled with laughter, quiet mornings, and dreams of a family. She often visited the mansion, where Mrs. Victoria welcomed her like a true daughter. But behind Victoria's gentle smile, there was something she had not yet resolved. The shadow of Richard. Though the court had closed its chapter, her heart had not. She could not erase the betrayal, yet she could not live forever with bitterness either. One afternoon, she asked Elena to join her at the garden table. The sun was soft, filtering through the mango trees. Victoria adjusted her glasses and spoke slowly. "My child," she began, "forgiveness is not about them deserving it. It's about freeing ourselves. I've carried the weight of Richard's betrayal long enough. Tomorrow I will see him." Elena's eyes widened. "Ma, after everything he planned to do to you." "Why?" Victoria smiled faintly. "Because strength is not only in punishing. It is also in letting go." The next day, Victoria entered the prison with Elena by her side. The echo of iron gates closing behind them sent a chill through Elena's body. Guards led Richard out. His once proud frame was bent, his hair grayer, his face lined with regret. When his eyes met Victoria's, he froze. Slowly, he dropped to his knees, tears streaming. "I don't deserve to see you," he whispered. "I was blind, greedy, foolish. Yet here you stand." Victoria's voice was calm, steady like a river. "Richard, you tried to destroy me, but I refuse to live in chains of anger. I am withdrawing the case. You will be released, but our marriage ends today." From her bag, she drew out divorce papers and laid them before him. "I forgive you, but never again as husband and wife." Richard's sobs filled the room. "You forgive me? After all I did?" "Yes," Victoria replied softly, "because I choose peace." Then she surprised him further. She pulled out a document, an account transfer of $1 million. "Start your life again. Use it well. Make this your second chance." Richard collapsed in tears, clutching the papers. "I don't deserve this kindness," he said brokenly. Victoria's eyes glistened as she turned away. Elena supported her arm, and together they left the prison, leaving Richard behind with more mercy than he had ever imagined. 2 years later, Elena held her newborn baby girl in her arms. She and Marcus named her Grace. When Victoria carried the baby, tears rolled down her cheeks. She kissed the child's forehead and whispered, "This is the dream I thought would never come true." In that moment, surrounded by love, Elena realized her journey had come full circle. She was no longer the poor maid who scrubbed floors in silence. She was a daughter, a wife, a mother, and a woman whose courage had saved a billionaire and reshaped destiny itself. And as Victoria rocked little Grace to sleep, peace finally settled over the mansion that had once echoed with betrayal. If you like this story, comment, share, and subscribe to our channel for more interesting stories.